Hey, I think we're live. All right.
All right.
Hi, everyone. I'm Mark Spile, founder of Cabbit Crossing Publishing, and this is our special live stream Q&A for Fairy Tales, Folklore, and Fables Reimagined. And I just got completely distracted because I could hear myself on another speaker. Hey, so we want to thank all of our amazing backers for their support. Without these books, or without your support, these books wouldn't have been possible at all. And we hope you enjoy them. We hope you enjoyed the Kickstarter process. This is going to bring the Kickstarter process to a wrap. So this is a nice little kind of like wrap party. I do a lot of filmmaking sometimes. So this feels like a wrap party in a way. Of course, if you have any problems with your bonus content, your ebooks, all that stuff, or heaven forbid you haven't got your paperback yet, please reach out, especially right away for the paperback. Sooner reach out, sooner we can get those fixed for you. So before we get started, I'm going to let you know you can ask questions in the chat room for any of our authors here. And if your favorite author isn't here, feel free to send a question anyway, and I'll ask them to answer that question later, either in the chats or the comments of the archive, or we'll find some other way to get to the backers. So I want to introduce our authors here. So we have Amy Michelle Schwartz of Deborah's Shadows. Am I pronouncing that right?
Yeah.
Yep. And we have J.C. Mastro, who edited the Volume 1, Enchanted Tales and Twisted Lore. And he's also been, as many of you, has been an integral part of all the anthologies we've done here at Cabbit Crossing. And Michael J.T. Roby, who wrote The Girl Who Grew Up. And Monique Waddell, who wrote Coco. Make sure I get the name right. Oh my gosh. Where's the name? Coco Bronze and the Seven Martians. Yes.
Coco Bronze and the Seven Martians.
Yes. And Bobby Nash, who wrote Real Boy.
Hi.
And Catherine Dow, who wrote Dave Miller's Flip Flops of Destiny and also The Changing Tree.
Yes.
So, and Jeremiah Dillon Cook, who wrote The Red Death Returns. Oh, yes, The Red Death.
Dun, dun, dun.
All right, I can see some comments here. Greg sent a comment, so he's excited. And and he says The Red Death always returns. Oh, wait a minute. No, I think I can do this, actually. Yes, yeah. Alrighty. All right, I can put your guys' stuff up here. This is the first time I've done live stream. I've had a streamer for almost a year, but I've never live streamed. And also, Greg admitted that he cannot spell. So, all right, so let's get started. Remember, everyone watching, you can ask questions anytime. And I do have some questions for y'all, and we'll just go down. We'll just go down a list here to Demi and down. I'm pretty sure all of you see each other the same way, and just answer that question. So I'm going to just ask right off the bat, why did you pick the tale that you picked for your story or stories? And JC, I'll switch it up for you. But
Yeah.
Save you for last, actually. And Demi, go ahead.
No, so I'm first. Okay, cool. So I picked Death's Messengers, which is a lesser-known Brothers Grimm fairy tale. I picked that one because first of all, I wanted to explore a fairy tale that maybe no one has really heard of before.
Mm-hmm.
My initial thought when I was getting into the anthology was to maybe do Little Red Riding Hood or Hansel and Gretel because those are favorites, but I wanted to step off some of my comfort zone and discover something new. And so I basically spent a lot of time reading Brothers Grimm fairy tales I wasn't familiar with. And as soon as I read Death's Messengers, I knew that's the one I wanted to do because I've always been fascinated by death characters in folklore and mythology and things like that. And I've always wanted to do a story with shadow magic and reimagining my own kind of manifestation of death. And so I decided to do that one.
All right, cool. And what about you, Michael?
So Peter Pan's always been a story that's really close to my heart. I can't really remember a point in my life where Peter Pan wasn't present and wasn't kind of a beloved thing to me when I was a little kid, up through like one of the first big plays I did in high school. We performed Peter Pan and I played one of the lesser pirates, but I was there, I assure you. But when I went back and yes, when I re-examined the story a little bit later, later on with the knowledge of, in a lot of old fairy stories, fairies are kind of bastards, and they've got kind of like this this malicious edge to them, and I kind of revisited it and I was like, Peter Pan's kind of a wretched little brat when you really get down to it. This is what happens when you don't grow up. And I wanted to explore what it would be like from Wendy's perspective to slowly realize you've basically had this toxic friendship with a fae for much of your life, and how she eventually picks up and moves on from there.
Yeah, I think it's a great twist sequel for it. So, and Jeremiah, you took a little Edgar Allan Poe here with the Red Death. So what inspired you to pick that tale?
Well, first off, definitely, Poe. I got the Poe inspiration there. It was 10th grade, and we read The Mask of the Red Death in my English class, and I loved it ever since then. But what actually got me to kind of write this story finally was this thing I showed, which is this ridiculous action figure, which it's not a ridiculous, it's a very cool action figure from Four Horsemen Studio. But it's ridiculous for a grown man like me to be buying them. But that's, no judgment. I mean, obviously I own it, so, and I'm not judging other people. But the fact that I spent money on it made me think I have to do something. Like I have to write a story to justify this, which I've done before, actually. I bought a Lego set once and wrote a story about it to justify buying that. That's how my insane OCD works in my head. But yeah, so I bought that toy, and it was Red Death, and I had to write a good Red Death story to justify having that toy. So. I
like that strategy as a writer. I think I'm going to buy a Porsche and be like, my character's got a Porsche. It's research. That's and okay, right?
It's a tax write-off.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
All right, Catherine, you took a little different turn here. You have your two stories with Dave Miller's Flip-Flops of Destiny and The Changing Tree. They're fairy tales, fables in structure, but they are completely original, I believe, right? So. Yeah. Why did you decide to go that route?
All right. Well, I mean, I had so much fun, I have to say, with this that after we were done with the anthologies, I wrote my own version of Bluebeard, but it's too late for this. But no, I liked the idea of creating. I wanted to see if I could kind of create my own. So with Dave Miller's Flip-Flops of Destiny, I've always been fascinated with like the superstition around sports culture, like if you wear a certain sweatshirt, and one game and your team wins, you better wear it the rest of the season. Or if you sit over there, or if this person's bad luck, they better not come to the game. There's like all this like sort of modern interpretation of old folklore, fairy tale kind of mythology that we live if you're a sports fan without really thinking about it. So I wanted to explore that kind of story. Using all the fairy tale things about, there's a curse and you have to do this crazy thing to break it, but you better not do that and all this, but using baseball instead. And then with The Changing Tree, I was really interested in a lot of folklore traditions have some sort of version of if you circle something a certain amount of time, something is going to happen, something magical and powerful. And I had very specific, sort of context and thing that I was thinking of in particular, but it does appear in a lot of cultures and for religious reasons or just in stories. And so I created a sort of, I wanted to create like an old fashioned feeling folklore story using that concept with, in this case, a magical tree that has the power to, protect a village. So it was sort of based on real things, but not like a very specific story.
Yeah. Well, like folklore we're talking it from stories, but folklore is any kind of superstition, all sorts of stuff, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I liked that it was coming, something that kind of appeared in different ways in different parts of the world. So
yeah, great. And Bobby, why evil Peter Pan, or not Peter Pan, Pinocchio, different P.
Yeah.
Different little brat.
It's one of those, it's like when I remember when we first talked about it, I like most of us, we've all got these idea files of ideas we've had over time. And I had this, it immediately popped in my head. I'd written this like couple of lines about a robot like killing people on a space station to take their skin because it wanted to become real. And as soon as I thought of that, Pinocchio just kind of was like a no-brainer. And so, yeah, it just, I like the idea, the concept of Pinocchio doing these things that, to become real, that, were not necessarily smart things or were not always good things. And I just thought the innocence of this robot committing these mass murders, for no other reason than his plastic skin had burned off and he needs to replace it. And so where do you replace skin? You go to people that have it. So, and Jeremiah, don't feel bad. I have little robots on my desk that that inspire me to write killer robot things. So, but it was fun. And plus I like the idea of putting it in a different setting. It's not what you think of as a fairy tale setting, a sci-fi horror setting. Yeah. So I really thought that was fun, and doing it that way, and that was fun. And I like to kill people, so it was great.
In stories.
Yes, it was absolutely fantastic fun for me. So yes.
Awesome. Well, speaking of different genres for stories, Monique, your story is fundamentally it's Snow White on Mars, right? So what sparked that idea for you? Uh-oh. Oh. I think you're frozen. StreamYard. Oh no, wait a minute, you're moving now. Did you hear the question?
Well, I did. I work with aerospace students. And so they do these neat projects where they're imagining going to Mars. And so the real challenge with going to Mars is getting back. But anyway, they talk about rovers. They talk about trying to have enough fuel there. So it really sparked my imagination. And, I'm a fantasy person, so I had to add the magic to space. I had to bring magic to space. So Coco Bronze was the perfect opportunity to kind of bring in colonization of Mars, kind of her role in leadership, and then the Martian people, basically some of their struggles, bringing all of that together, and then bringing some of the neat stuff we know about Mars. That was kind of my inspiration.
Awesome. All right, and JC,
John's good. Yeah.
John, so you co-edited and a lot of Volume 1. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that experience and some of your stories? Because most of these stories, most of you have, maybe all of you have stories in Volume. I know Jeremiah is in Volume 2, but everybody else has at least one story in Volume 1 here. So what was that experience like? Were you surprised by any particular stories? You don't have to pick one of theirs just to be
right. No, it was a lot of fun actually. Probably more so than I even could have expected when we chose this theme for this anthology, our third in the series. Because we twisted up different stories before, but this one I thought there's some really cool background material and so much to choose from out there that people could use. And I had a lot of fun just seeing how the different authors did their takes. Like Catherine's were totally new, but definitely had that feel. Or Monique's with instantly I knew it was Snow White, but with sci-fi on Mars, and that was really cool. All of them really. I'm a sci-fi guy at heart, so I guess the sci-fi ones probably caught me a smidge more than some of the others. Doesn't mean I didn't enjoy all of them. They were great. Demi's story was surprising because I'd actually never heard that before. So not only do I get to be entertained by all this, I get to learn and experience new things too, which is always fun. But we had a great group of people through both books, not just the ones because I read them all. I read all the stories. I just didn't work through both volumes. But we had a great group of people on this, and it was good to have so many people show up and want to be a part of this. It was rad.
Yeah. Yeah, because you've co-edited like Dragon's Different Tale, Tales of Monstrosity, so been there from the beginning. So, was there any particular, just to stick with the editing for a minute here, any particular challenge you had in editing some stories, or?
Because we had so much good stuff to work with, I think the biggest challenge was trying to say, which ones go where, which ones can we keep, which ones unfortunately we have to let go, because you want, when they're all good, you want to keep them all, but you can only do so much, and then putting them in an order that made sense and flows into books and length, etc. All the logistical boring stuff, but probably the having to choose and say no on a couple occasions.
Because you're also so darn good. I mean,
no, really.
How many stories were there between the 2 volumes?
Oh gosh.
I want to say 23, but I might be off by 1 or so. But yeah,
I think so.
I think that's about right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's the most stories we've done at once, because usually we just have 1 book. Tales of Monstrosity was pretty large though, but that's why I was like, I'm not doing that one large again. So
Right.
Not only is it a lot of work, but it's also just the logistics of having such a huge page count and trying to sell the paperback and everything. So we made it a little bit smaller. Enchanted Tales it's a decent size here.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yep.
But this is a nice size too. Once Upon a Time. So twisted. There you go. Yeah.
I guess yes to brag a little bit. I feel like it's a testament to what we've done with the previous ones up to this one that when we put out a call for this one, we had so many people who wanted to be a part of this time. So we must be doing something right and entertaining, and for the authors to want to be a part of that, and for people to want to read it.
Yeah, I hope so. I know Michael, Monique, and Bobby are all new, right? So everybody else or Demi too. Sorry.
No, I'm new. Yeah, I haven't been in the other one.
Yeah.
So Kat and Jeremiah are veterans. So.
Well, I will say you guys were. I had more communication from you guys than I do from a lot of other anthologies I'm in. You guys were really good about keeping us constantly in the loop, which was very nice, very nice.
Oh, that's good. Sometimes I'm afraid I'm bothering you too much.
Well, I'll talk up Marks on that point, because I've heard it and from multiple people that the typical anthology process is not like what we've created here.
No.
A lot of people, send in a story and they hear yes or no, and then it's kind of like, here's $50. See you later. Well, we've more so created a author community in a way to put these things together. Communication, teamwork, shared what do you call it, profits and royalties and shared communication and ideas, and it's something a little bit different. It was Marx's brainchild since leaving school for all of us, and it's been really a pretty cool thing.
Yeah, I also love the critique groups. That was really fun.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, that's totally different.
Nice blast from the past.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope it.
I for one.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to toss out. I for one. The last anthology I got featured in before this, I wasn't aware I was in it till they sent me my complimentary copy. So
the polar opposite experience. Yeah.
I have you beat on one. I got an email from a reader who told me they loved my story in the book I didn't know was out yet.
Oh wow.
Jeez.
I kind of like the sound of that, actually. That's a fun surprise. Did not mean to
That's
divert.
funny.
Apologies.
Well, good. I'm glad to hear that feedback. So, I hope some of you in the critique groups, not only does it help you with the stories, but you get to know each other a little bit too. So, because I feel like sometimes as authors, we feel isolated, kind of, I mean, some of us are introverts. We don't mind it sometimes being isolated, but we still like some interaction occasionally, right? So, so hopefully you all enjoy that. So, and also another thing, in case you're watching this and you're like, "What is this anthology?" I just came upon it somehow, and you're like, you want to know more? We do have pre-order links available. I'll stick them in the description. Maybe they're already in there, but I will get them on there soon. If not, or you can go cabbitcrossing.com to find out more. And one other thing that's different in our anthologies that I like doing, especially with the growth of AI and stuff, is that I ask a lot of you, when you can, to write behind the scenes essays. So that usually doesn't happen very often, but I feel like to me, like when I read anthologies, I'll like a story and then like I'll move on to the next one, and then I kind of just forget about the person sometimes. I might remember the story, but forget the author a little bit. So I'm hopeful that like with these behind the scenes things, that help stick more and help people, point them to you guys so they can find your other work. What did you think about the process of writing behind the scenes? Was it challenging? Was it fun? Demi, why don't we start for you?
Yeah, I loved it. And I've been in quite a few anthologies now, and no one else has ever done something like that. And I love, just with my music as well, with that whole thing, I love sharing the inspiration about my songs. And I try to like blog posts and stuff for my other stories and anthologies to share the inspiration behind them. But to have the opportunity to do that actually in the book, and for everybody who has a copy will get to read that, it's super cool. So I love doing it. I think I went a little overboard. I talk a lot and I love to share a lot, so mine's a little on the longer side, but I really love to share the inspiration behind my story for sure.
Awesome. And JC, in the past when you've done them, do you enjoy that process or?
Yeah,
I do too. Yeah, I think I like to know where stories come from, and it's cool to see authors' inspirations. And in the previous two, where I was able to put it in a story as well, with my own behind the scenes, it actually allowed me to sort of deep dive into where I actually got the idea from. Sometimes it's just there and it just sort of pops in from different directions and forms into something cohesive. But I had to actually like, oh yeah, it was this song by that band, and this thing I used to enjoy when I was a kid. So I think it strengthens that inspiration process, not just for the author, but it's super cool to have people know where it comes from. And I don't know, just maybe that'll help somebody who's an inspiring author themselves to be like, oh, that's how they got their inspiration, or that's how that works for them. Maybe I can do that.
How about you, Michael? Did you like it? I'm waiting for one of you to say, I hated it so much.
I happen to consider myself a bit of a pretentious blowhard, so I loved it. I absolutely love any excuse to sit around and poke at my own work. Seriously though, yeah, I had a lot of fun with it. I had a lot of fun kind of getting into the history, explaining some of that same history I explained to you guys. It's and in our me and Mark's had a prior one-on-one that went up on YouTube, so that gave me plenty of good stuff to think about what to incorporate. And yeah, I always like hearing where writers get their ideas, so I had a lot of fun getting to share it back in this case.
Nice. So, and Jeremiah, have you enjoyed that process?
Yeah, I just echo everybody. It was a lot of fun. It's definitely fun, going through. And sometimes, like, I feel like I tend to write my stories, and I put a hyper focus on them when I'm writing them. I get them done, and then I kind of forget about them almost intentionally. It's like it's you download it out of you took it out of your brain, it's gone. And when you get to write how you did it, it's a lot of fun to revisit that. So when I got my copy of The Red Death Returns, I reread my essay and I was like, oh, I forgot this is what inspired all this stuff. It's like very cool to have that like there to remember.
Yeah, I love that too.
Yeah, I find it helps because if you sometimes when I go back to a story 2 years later, I'm like, I wrote this. Wow, cool. Much less remember what inspired it.
So when you go, what was I thinking? Now you know.
There you go. Oh, okay. How about you, Kat?
Well, I mean, along those lines, I think I had an easy time or I struggled depending on how quickly I wrote my behind the scenes. Because sometimes if I took a little bit of time, I had to actually think about it and be like, okay, what was I thinking? And or what did I learn? Like, what would be actually interesting for me to process about this experience? You know, was it something I learned in my own craft, or was it something I just had fun learning about? You know, like what you know. So for me, it was kind of a way to debrief myself. And sometimes that was really easy, and sometimes I actually had to sit down and think about it for a while because I wasn't sure what the most important thing was, or you know what to share. So, but overall, like I really liked it, and it's always fun to read, you know, what other people say too.
Awesome.
But I never thought about, Mark's, your point about sort of how, using it also as a way for people to get to know the author a little bit. I actually didn't really think about it in those terms, but I love that. It's because you're absolutely right. You when you read an anthology, you might read a lot of great stories, but then you forget who wrote them because it's it's a whole bunch of different people. So that's a wonderful idea.
Yeah. I hope that my goal, hopefully, these projects is to help everybody grow and get new fans.
Yeah.
How about you, Bobby? Did you enjoy writing behind the scenes?
Yeah, and I usually pepper mine with a lot of self-deprecating, smart-ass humor, usually at my own expense. But actually, I've done this. I've worked with a couple of other publishers over the years that had done something similar. So I'd done that before, and I enjoy it so much that for the few books I self-publish some novella series that I do those in the back of my novellas, that I actually carry that over, that I enjoy the process. And it's usually just a couple of 2 to 3 pages of whatever I was thinking, or how this idea or whatever. And I find it fascinating. And reading through the ones in this book, it's fascinating to get into the headspace of the other authors. I think you're right. I think it helps us get to know each other a little better. You get a little insight into the author, and I just find them fun. They're just, and hey, I'm writing about me, which is my favorite topic. So you're not alone, Michael. It's, so I like
what I'm hearing is everybody wants to write more. We're gonna have a behind the scenes book.
Okay, we're gonna do a book of essays with a 2-page short story at the end.
There we go. And Monique, what did you think about the process of writing behind the scenes? Stopping and thinking about it.
I think that's a great way to explain, like, what were you thinking? And I didn't really think about it like maybe that would have scared me more if I had thought about people getting to know you. But I think it's a really good idea, and I didn't really think about it being that great of an idea at the time. But now, in hindsight, I'm like, oh, that is a great idea, because it does make you explain, like, when someone says, well, why did you do that? Well, this is what I was thinking. This is kind of where my mind was. So I in hindsight, I think I appreciate it more hearing y'all talk about what it is really for. So I should have written something a little longer.
And this comment here from Greg reminded me about D&D. The reason why it reminds me is one of our bonus features was making a D&D compatible or 5th edition, anybody knows tabletop, stats for some of your characters. So we did, this was just a one-time, boom, we give it to you as a stretch goal thing to people. And I gave them copies to all of you if you ever want to look at them, because I think we got Pindy or Pinocchio in there, and we got a character from Monique's story, and we got Peter Pan. Yeah. Gosh, I don't know if Demi's character, I don't think your character was in it. And we have Peach Samurai and a few other people. So just a random selection, basically. So if you're ever curious how they stat out, if any of you play tabletop role-playing games. be sure to check it out.
It's cool.
That's a cool little promotional idea, though. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Because there was also there was something with recipes as well, right?
Yes, we did recipes, themed recipes. Yeah, we had Spotify playlist. That's also included in the back of the book. So if you want to go check it out, you can go find the playlist or check out the songs. And we had some audio commentaries, bonus content, and some other stuff. So some of that's exclusive to the backers. At some point, we may release some of that more publicly, in the future. But right now, they got that stuff. So, but yeah, I like those little bonuses. They're fun for stretch goals for Kickstarters.
And we did the one-on-one interviews. I remember that was fun. I enjoyed that. I'm assuming we've all.
Oh
done
yeah,
those.
that was fun too.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all good. It's all good pre-promotion before the Kickstarter launch, which I think gets people excited.
Yeah.
So when it does launch, they'll go, "Oh, that's the thing they were talking about." So yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and you can go Cabbit Cross it on YouTube here that you're watching this, and you can find a lot of solo interviews with y'all. And also Greg does have the game stats, so he's going to kill his player characters with your creations. So you should be proud. All right, and that was, I should give credit. The stats that were done was a lot of it was Colton Fisher, who's one of the authors, and Madison McKeever and Amber Mount also converted their characters over. So, all right, moving on. So, is there another fairy tale, folklore, fable out there that is a favorite of yours that maybe even was a contender for a story? Maybe not. Maybe you just like it and you couldn't think of a story. But is there another favorite out there that you like to mention, and why is it one of your favorites? I'm going to mix it up a little bit. I'm going to go with Jeremiah first. I
had to unmute. Yeah, you got me. I think the Legends of Sleepy Hollow is one I still want to do something with. For the last anthology, which was about monsters, I wanted to do something with the Headless Horseman first, and then someone else had already got that one, so I ended up going to Spring Heel Jack, which was a lot of fun because I had a lot of fun researching Spring Heel Jack. And as I've told Marks before, I referenced one of the characters was named after Emily Zarka, who does Monstrum, who then wrote the introduction for this book. So that's pretty cool. So I think Legends of Sleepy Hollow is just one that's like very quintessentially American, very fun. I like the Headless Horseman mythology. I'd love Tim Burton's Sleepy Hollow. So I don't know if I could do something that would be new and interesting enough to compete with that, or I don't know, but I just think there'd be something fun about that.
That'd be great. And
that is very cute, by the way. That comment is adorable. In Sleepy Hollow, I almost died in Sleepy Hollow pretty recently.
You almost died in Sleepy Hollow.
I was driving back from Necronomicon Providence in 2024, and I drove through the worst storm I've ever driven through.
Oh my god!
Decided to get off near the Palisades, so right over the bridge from Sleepy Hollow, basically. Thought, okay, I'm gonna get off and I'm gonna be safe. And I hit a flooded intersection, and it was flooded to the point where the water was up to my my mirrors for a second. Made it out, but I was just so shocked because I hadn't seen, it was so dark, I hadn't seen the flooding at all. So it was normal driving, and oh my god, I'm about to die, and then I was okay. Wow. But yeah.
Well, if you're ever in the area and there's a storm, I'm 10 minutes away from Sleepy Hollow, so come to my house instead.
I gotta remember that for next time for sure.
I'm sitting here a little dumbstruck because Jeremiah told a different story of how he nearly died in a car crash back when we were on Castle of Horror together.
Oh yeah, that one. Oh yeah,
damn man.
That was when I was learning to drive, though. That was and that was on a snowy mountain where I almost went off the snowy mountain. So.
Oh wow!
So channel that inspiration, I suppose.
Yeah, every one of Jeremiah's stories starts out. Well, this is the story I almost died at. And,
That's me.
How about you, Kat? Was there a story? Because yours are original, but was there a fairy tale or something that maybe you thought about, or just a favorite?
Actually, I have this enormous book. It's this thick of Italian fairy tales and folklore.
Oh, that's right. You told me about that.
And I was really reading through that because I thought that would, we're really familiar with fairy tales and folklore from like certain parts of the world or certain countries, but I've never heard one from Italy, even though they have a very rich tradition there and all kinds of stories. And so I was looking for inspiration, but there was also a deadline, so I didn't find the right story in time.
Maybe in the future.
Yeah, totally. But I still want to do that because I like the idea of highlighting stuff from cultures that aren't like that are a little bit different or we aren't as familiar with. I mean, Italy itself is not unusual, but Italian folklore is I think so.
Oh yeah. What about you, Bobby?
Well, I do enjoy Sleepy Hollow, the Headless Horseman legend, and Peter Pan. Those are always fun. But actually, the real contender for me was Hansel and Gretel.
Oh yeah,
I love the
One of my
idea.
favorites.
Yes, the being lost and the lost and hunted and the terror of. And I'm a big sucker for anything that happens in the woods, anyways.
Yeah.
I love a good outdoors, story like that. And so that was probably my second if the Pinocchio hadn't worked out, or you just said no when I sent the pitch. But Catherine's right too. It wasn't for this book, but I did a story for Kolchak the Night Stalker's 50th anniversary. And the timeline I was given was when he was in Vietnam. So I studied Vietnamese folklore to use as the basis for that story. And they had some really interesting ones. And so, so studying other cultures, because there's a lot of them that don't translate over to where we are. And there's a lot of good folklore and things that are excellent starting points for stories and in studying the history of or the culture of other countries and seeing what the stories that have passed down over the years. So, there's a lot of good stuff to mine there for stories.
Heck yeah. Yeah, I know. Like a few years ago, there was an animated series. The name eludes me right now. That's on Netflix, I believe. That's Filipino folklore, urban fantasy. And I was like, whoa, I was blown away of all this Filipino folklore and started reading up about it. So
I saw that Greg posted it. It's like that different folklore could be pretty fatalistic in Eastern Europe, but it's like, isn't all fairy tales and folklore pretty much dire?
They kind of are until they get Disney-fied. Yeah,
they don't generally have happy endings.
How about you, Monique? Any other stories that would have been contenders, or that you find they're just a favorite?
I feel like there's.
Well, I would like to do something with Rapunzel.
Oh
yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Go ahead.
No, it's a good one. I love that one.
Oh no, you're okay, Monique.
Where you at?
Maybe we lost her.
Well, I was thinking about Rapunzel. I was thinking of a Rapunzel. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. You're good.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, I'm sorry. So I was thinking about Rapunzel, and because of her isolation, she becomes a little bit mad, and then her hair actually starts to go out and kill people. And so it would be like a kind of a dark fantasy where her hair, and she has to figure out like all of these murders are happening, but it's actually her hair that's doing it.
That's cool.
I like it.
It's kind of like Medusa and Rapunzel, kind of a mashup of the two. Yeah, it's good. I like that.
Okay, Demi. What about you? Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Michael. What were you saying?
Yeah.
It's a pretty irrelevant point. I was just going to say, I think there was a Simpsons Trios of Horror once where Homer got a hair transplant of a snake, the petty criminal, and it gave him murderous intent, and it was called Hell to Pay. So
That's so good.
Sounds like a similar spirit.
Okay, Demi, what's your answer? Any folklore?
I like Rapunzel as well. one that I would like to do that I kind of recently discovered is the 12 Dancing Princesses. I don't know if anyone's familiar with that, but it's a Brothers Grimm one too. I actually read a book. It's called House of Salt and Sorrows. That's basically like a YA fantasy reimagining of that. And that's where I found out about it in the first place. And then I read the actual Brothers Grimm one, and it was really interesting to read the original for that. So I would love to do that one maybe at some point. I really like mythology. Like I've done stuff with Greek mythology before. I've done the Atlantis legend before. I love Egyptian stuff. So I would love to do maybe something with like Egyptian folklore or mythology at some point too.
Nice. It's good. How about you, JC? Any favorite folklore of yours that maybe you would consider exploring, or just a favorite folklor story?
Well, I mean, fun fact, I almost had a story in this one. Health kind of got in the way, but I was really into the idea of using the Pied Piper. Probably, I think it comes from that old Disney cartoon from way back, if anybody's ever seen it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just kind of a cool, fun story, and hard lessons like most fairy tales tend to have. So if I were to do one of these, I would try to finish that story. That would be my first goal. But yeah, I mean, there's so much out there. It's hard to really pin one down, but I do like the idea of learning about stuff from other cultures, like Kat was saying, because there's so much, and we don't even know about it.
Yeah, just along the line of how dark they can be. Greg said we need Icarus to fly across the Earth and be successful. That's where Disney comes into play. So. And Michael, what about you? Any story?
So, if I were to have kind of a prompt like this again, I have this story I wrote years ago. It hasn't been published anywhere yet. It's more along the lines of what Kat did, in that like it's something wholly original, but it does have a certain mythological flavor to it, because I've always been fascinated by because culture is still a living, evolving thing. So this short story I wrote was about back when I was in high school in the theater department. We passed around that there was this ghost in the paint room, and that like you do certain things to honor the paint room ghost, such to the point that like there was this creepy Cabbage Patch Kid doll like hanging from a rope towards the back of the paint room, and like that was done in homage to the ghost. And I'm like, I woe be upon any who tried to move that token, because that token is there in honor of the paint room ghost. The paint room ghost will become angry if you mess with its stuff. So I did write a short story about someone who did mess with a high school theater paint room ghost. And I was just like, woe be upon thee who messes with the high school theater paint room ghost.
Nice. Yeah, that's the thing about folklore. It's always happening, right? We got urban legends, we got all sorts of stuff. Slender Man, and I don't know, whatever else out there.
Yes.
It's really a broad category when you think about it.
Yeah.
And you start trying to place things.
Yeah, and I think all towns had them. Like some become more famous than others, but like the town I live in has one that if you're from out of not from here, you've never heard of it, but we have one. It's weird. It's just
Yeah. Yep. My town has a stone couch that was reportedly, I think it was carved by Native Americans, or it's just a natural formation. But the whole thing was, if you sat on the stone couch once, you would break a bone sometime in the future. If you sat on it twice, you would get in a car accident in the future. There's the car accident thing coming back. And then if you sat on it 3 times, you die. I'm so superstitious, I'd never sat on it once, but
Yeah.
Are you sure you didn't sit in it before you went driving?
Right.
no, I've never broken a bone to this moment. I
Okay.
thank myself, knock on wood, but yeah.
All right. So how about your writing process, especially this story, but also in general, do you create outlines, or you just start writing? Are you like a plotter or a pantser or something else? Let's start with you, Michael.
I originally, for years and years and years, I was very much pure pantser, and like, I just trusted, I know where I'm going, more or less. But with every passing year, I get more, my notes get more detailed, and I do more planning, and sometimes it kills the flow of my process a little bit because I spend too much time trying to figure out logistics and stuff. But generally, I try to, disciplined amount of planning, write it out, and then inevitably some stuff does always happen that ends up surprising me anyway. So, at the end of the day, I still get to have the fun of that side of the experience. It's just, I have a roadmap to start with. That's a good way to put it, actually. I have a roadmap to start with. I just don't know what fun restaurants I'm going to stop by while I'm driving.
I like that. How about you, John?
Yeah, just like Michael said, I have caught myself outlining myself to death where I don't even care about writing it anymore. So I try very hard not to do that to the most part, but I will, however, I'll get an idea, of like a big picture, but it usually starts with something small, whether it's just the character or a specific scene that I see in a story or whatever. And I'll use that sort of as my basis and write around it, write to it, and of course things change and you discover as you go what you're doing. But I really do like to just jump in there and go, see what happens, see what comes out,
All right, sounds good. And Demi, how about you?
I am a plotter to heart, probably a little too much. But with this one especially, like I said, whenever I read Just Messengers, I realized that's what I wanted to do. And with any story, it's really important for me to connect with my protagonist right away. And the first thing I always do, which is one of my favorite parts of the process, is Googling names and looking up meanings and finding the perfect name. And as soon as I saw Dabria's name, I knew she was my main character. And then her character really just came to life in my head. Her shadows, which are my absolute favorites, they came to life in my head. And I feel like once I have the characters in my mind, it's a lot easier for me to do the plot. And so I had a pretty detailed outline. But what I loved so much about this process was the original draft of it was way less complex. And then once we got into the critiquing stage, it was really great to get feedback in places where I could develop the world a little bit more or strengthen Dabria's backstory a little bit more. And so my outlines are typically just like their bare bones of like what I could get onto the page and have a clear vision of what I want to do for the story. And then like revisions are my favorite part of the process because I'm able to get feedback and take the story to the next level and make it more complex.
Nice. Sounds solid. Monique, how about you? What's your approach?
I'm an outliner, but like Demi, it's bare bones, but I go off track because sometimes my characters, they want to do something different, and I let them when I'm writing. And at first I didn't, and then I would run into a roadblock. So if the characters want to take me off the outline, I let them, because I'm like, okay, this is where we're taking. Then I have to go back to the outline and go, okay, now what are we going to do? So I'm okay with the characters taking me outside of the outline. So it gives me a little bit more freedom. But I like to do Pinterest boards, and I like to, put everyone together and kind of see them. And I can look on someone and say, okay, that is that character. So I can actually see it like a movie. But yeah, I do like to outline, because I've written an 800-page book before, and so without an outline it becomes crazy. So I do need to get reined in sometimes.
800 pages.
But this process was nice because
what was the word count on that? 800 pages.
That was when I first that was when I first started writing, and it was this thick, and it was like, never again will I do that to myself. I should go back now that I have some training and see if I can repurpose the story and get it down to like 200 or 300 words. Maybe one day when I have free time.
Either
and then
that or
you're
you
tired.
break it up and you've got a whole series ready to go.
Exactly.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
800. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That's a lot. Yeah. How about you, Bobby? How do you approach it?
I'm very similar to I think everybody else here has said so far. I'm somewhere in the middle. I have, I know Michael said he called it a roadmap. I call them signposts. I know these 5 things have to happen, but I don't do outline. I can't outline. I've tried outlining, and my problem with outlining is when after I finish the outline and go to write the story, I've lost interest because I feel like I've already written this story.
Yeah. You know, it's like, have you ever seen a trailer for a movie that's just
Yeah.
way too in depth? And you're like,
Yeah.
I saw it already.
I've seen this movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so what I do, everything with me starts with the character. You know, I know the characters, and once I know the characters, then I can point the character toward, okay, here's the first signpost we've got to go to. And then I'll let the character take me there, which then leads to those happy accidents because, you know, this character may decide it's best if we go that way, you know, instead of the way I thought. So you get some interesting stuff that way. Now with this one, if I recall correctly, we had to send you like a very short couple of sentence pitch about what it was we were writing. So doing that you know, at least put me on, okay, I've already said I'm going to tell this story. If I turn in something that's, you know, not about a robot being, you know, on a space station, you know, I might be in trouble.
What's up with this killer unicorn on a space station? What's going on here?
Yeah, it's like, wait, what? Yeah. So, because sometimes you get those ideas and you go, oh man, I should have pitched this. But you know, I've locked, you know, because so doing that the pitch, you're locked into telling that story. But then it's how do you tell that story? And that's where trusting the characters comes in for me, because I've had, and I'm sure we probably have all had these experiences where while you're following the character and writing stuff, you get these big twists that you didn't anticipate.
Yeah.
Where something happens in the writing of the story, and then the light bulb goes off of your head, and you're just like, "Oh my God, that's brilliant!"
Yeah.
You know, why didn't I think of that? Oh, you know, my characters are very much smarter than me, so they're giving me these twists that I did not plan ahead of time, and I love that. I love that feeling of excitement, and I hope because it excites me, that it excites the reader. So that's kind of how I do it. But yeah, I tried the outline thing early in my career, and it just sucked the creativity right out of me.
Yeah. How about you, Kat?
Sorry, mute. I want to be really good at outlining, but I've always struggled with it. So usually what I have to do, my process is I have an idea I like and I get excited about, and then I write a page or two first without any plan of where it's going or what I want to do with it. And that's kind of my way of sussing out if I just was having a fun idea, or if it has some meat to it, like if it has somewhere I can go with it. Because sometimes a lot of my ideas are like a funny concept, but there's not actually a story there, or, you know, it's just like an interesting character, but I can't figure out what it is they should do, even though they're interesting. So that's sort of my initial process, is I just sit down and I write for a while, and then I see if there's something, you know, or if I've lost interest by just writing it down a couple paragraphs or whatever, you know. And then outlining at that point is kind of similar to what some of the other folks mentioned. It's more like some bullet points that kind of, I often can't get to the very end. Every once in a while I can, you know, I have a clear enough idea where I can map it all out, but a lot of times it's like sort of maybe a couple chapters, and then I assess where it's gone, and if I have to kind of regroup, and then it, you know, kind of like that. So almost like imagining you're driving in bad weather and you can see so far ahead, you know, so you kind of, you go up to there and then you plan some more and you go up to the next spot. But I wish I was a very detailed, you know, plotter, because I actually think you save yourself a lot of time and misery if you can do that. And I should be better at it, seeing as I went through an MFA program where they really emphasized it. My mentors would be disappointed in me. But
That may be the reason you don't. You're rebelling.
maybe it is.
Yeah.
It's some sort of like, subconscious rebellion. I don't know. But, I don't know. I do feel like I feel like my process is something that always changes and maybe that's normal. What works for you at one period of time suddenly stops working and you kind of have to figure out something else.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
I feel like it shifts sometimes on story to story for me. How about you, Jeremiah?
I think ideally, I like to sit down and have a whole day for short stories specifically. Obviously, you can't do this with longer works, but for a 3,000 word short story, I love to just sit down with whatever my idea is and just write all day. And if I can write the short story in one day and be done with it, I feel so good about it. And I've typically found, for whatever reason, I don't think this is normal or is a good thing in a way, because it doesn't make me happy. But the stories that I've had the most success with, that have gone on to have the most success, are the ones that I've done the least with. So the ones that I've written in a white heat and submitted get accepted. The ones that I write in a white heat and then revise and revise and revise get rejected. So I tend to feel like there's something, if you can stay closer to the core initial inspiration, it works out better for me in the long run, at least. So yeah, I just try to go. Now I do occasionally, since I've written novels, I've outlined those a little more, and novellas, I've outlined those a little more. But for short stories, I kind of and I think that, a lot of times a short story is just one scene taken, made big, essentially one scene from a novel or something like that, made big. So yeah, you can just write it in one go. At least that's the way it works for me.
Cool. I like that. I just realized I'm an author too. I should probably say something. I wrote Three Little Pigs and The Big Bad Jaguar. What I do with my stories, what I do with short stories, similar to you, Jeremiah, is I will think about the basic concept and I will write down maybe 3 lines. They're kind of beginning, middle, end kind of deal, just to get me a kind of a spine to work off of. And then I like to be able to sit down too, just one evening, if not write it all in one evening, at least write in 2 evenings or something, and keep it fresh. And that seems to work really well for me.
It's easier too, because you don't, when you when I've struggled with stories and I take a break and then you have to come back to it and you got to refine where you were and figure out what you were thinking and reconnect the dots, essentially. It can be a struggle. It can work too. I feel like this story, The Red Death Returns, was one where I wasn't able to write in one go. I will say, since I've had a daughter and now she's 2, it's a lot harder to find 8 hours or whatever in a day to write a story out. So I have to, work harder to, write pieces of stories and put them together. And The Red Death Returns, I started it, had some struggles, had to stop, revise, start again, and then eventually I think I did write it pretty much in one go, but it took a couple of tries. So.
Yeah, that's one thing I do like about short stories. I do feel like because you can do them really tight and quick, it feels more primal or something. I don't know, whatever your right word would be. But I like your idea, Monique. I've done it with one of my novels, Obsidian Monsters, where I use images, I cast them with people, actors and stuff, and it helps me a lot. But I've never done it with short stories. I don't know why, and so I might have to think about trying that out. Once I get the first draft, cast them, and then see if suddenly some inspiration, hits me because of my new casting.
I've had that happen too. I'll want to see a cover image or something, or something like that, and it'll get me jazzed and excited to keep going or finish it or whatever. Just putting that visual to it, I guess, makes it real. I don't know. It's cool.
Nice.
The guy who played Peter Pan in my high school production that I've come back to referencing a couple times, he and I are still friends, and I messaged him after the book published, and I told him, look, I did not describe the character based on you, but you were the character in my head when I was writing. And he was like, I'm honored, but
Nice.
can someone evil truly have so much glitter on them? because I had a lot of show.
Nice. So I know JC, you're gonna have to leave here soon.
Yeah,
Before you
Thanks for
go,
coming
rest of us, if you don't mind, we'll stick around a little longer. But JC, before you go, can you tell everybody where they can find you and your work online?
Yeah, absolutely. Find me on all the socials at JC Mastro Author. You'll find my novel Academy Bound available on Amazon.
Yeah, I
and
noticed
Kindle.
There's the hat.
You've got the best merch.
Yeah, the merch.
Yeah.
I don't know if it gets me any sales, but I have fun with it. So, and it's on Kindle Unlimited now. So if you wanted to pick that up and go for it that way. I also recently translated it into a few different languages, so you can find it out there in other countries. Other than that, of course, I'm in the other two anthologies that we did, the Dragons of a Different Tale and Tales of Monstrosity. Just drop me a line on socials or whatever, and we'll connect. And I hope you enjoy the books if you pick them up.
Yeah, you've inspired me. What I'm gonna do when my next book comes out, I'm gonna get a hat.
Damn
and
right.
And I'm gonna make one of those, those little paper, what is it? The paperback, the little ones you used to get all the time. I don't think, do they make them anymore? I can't remember what that's called now.
Chapbook, flipbook.
No, I mean, not paperback, but like the little small paperback, soft bound. Gosh.
Oh.
Anyway,
Okay.
I'm gonna get a little small version. I'm gonna stick it in my hat, and then when somebody asks me about it, I'm gonna go, boom, here you go.
Well, pins all over your hat then.
Oh, I love it. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us, JC.
Thank you, everybody.
We're gonna swap you out.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Say
all right.
Shazam, and you turn into Marissa.
Surprise!
Hey,
Abracadabra.
I don't have a cool hat though, man.
Thank you. I got merch. I got swag. All right.
That's awesome. I love it.
Thank you, guys. I'll see you next time.
Good to see you.
Yeah.
Bye.
All right, we're joined with Marissa Wolf now, who co-wrote one of the stories. And make sure I get the name completely correct here. And it is
And this one.
Yeah, and that one, and the volume 2 is the Power of the Wild, because it's you and Melissa Olthoff, right?
That's right. It's our first time writing together.
You guys did a great job. So the question we just wrapped up on, which would be great for you to also answer, if you don't mind, is are you like a plotter or a pantser? Somewhere between. What was your approach for this story? You have a special case because you co-wrote, right?
Yeah.
So I wonder how that worked out,
Yeah.
how that strategized.
Am I a plotter or a pantser? Yes. And then with
Good.
the answer is yes. With co-writing, this was super fun. So Melissa and I have never written together, but we have worked in tandem before. I don't know. Been working on our own stories separately, and we have both worked with many co-authors. So we came into it and we're like, okay, here's the plan. And we made a plan and remember to take notes on it, which is sometimes a problem, in about 20 minutes. And then we started writing to the plan and then went wildly off the plan and ended up somewhere slightly different. And the process was different. We each had a viewpoint character, but then by the end we were all over. And then that is potentially why it was 12,000 words. When I think the limit was 6, which this is why it's in volume 2. Because Marx is like, I can put 3 other people's stories in the anthology. It's like, but each of us only wrote 6,000 words. So technically, but no, it was a planter approach where we had a plan and then we pantsed it a little. So.
Oh, and so because you weren't here before, tell them a little bit about your story then. What's the story about?
Yes. So the story, we both really love changelings, but didn't want to write just like a regular changeling story. So it was basically the function of changelings. They're always twins. And you put one in the human world and one in the Fey world, and that anchors the worlds together until they hit a certain age, and then other things have to happen. And in our story, they didn't like the other things that had to happen. So the changelings refused to follow the fates that were fated for them, and decided to go a different way. And chaos ensued. And there's a swamp witch. I think she's a bog witch, but she's pretty great. And we both just wanted to write her most of the time because she was super fun. So anytime you've got a bog witch cackling and sowing chaos, it's going to be a good time. So
nice. All right. So, and I'll throw one more question at you. Buy me some time.
Great. I love
it. What about writing behind the scenes? We were talking a little bit about, you don't usually get that in these books, and how much they totally loved it. And so you totally loved it too, right?
I did. I totally loved it. One, I totally loved writing with Melissa. So Melissa Olthoff, she's a baller, y'all. She's so much fun to write with. We cackled about as much as the Bog Witch in writing this story. And it was super fun. And then Marks is genuinely so great to work with. I'm not sure if this is what you wanted me to answer the question, but this is what you're getting.
I'm liking it.
Okay, great. So when I told him, I was like, so we're a little over the word limit, Marks. And he's like, just send it. Yep, we'll just see what we can do. Which was amazing because I usually try really hard to follow the submission guidelines, but we tried to cut the story for like days and we couldn't. And we're just like, there are 2 authors. We each wrote 6K. I don't know. Maybe that's okay. And bless him, like Mark's found a way to make it work, which is pretty amazing. And so, yeah, we were really pumped about it. And we were really, really pumped that the Kickstarter funded to the point that there could be the second anthology, because also both the covers are so great. But you guys, I don't know if people have shown you this cover enough because I'm coming in late. I am obsessed with this.
It's
Cool.
So yeah,
Cool.
so we had a lot of fun. So Melissa and I started off just kind of tagging each other into the document. Like, okay, I wrote my POV, you write yours. And then towards the end, we're like, you know what? Let's just be in here together. Let's just write this. And we would like say it out loud to each other. And then kind of, it was a really fun collaborative process.
Nice.
And that's why it was 12,000 words.
Well, that's nice. I'm glad that you guys enjoyed that process. I think you guys we're a good team. Just as all the editors, JC can't say it now, but we're all just like, wow, how big is this? What? And then after we're done, we're like, damn it, so good though.
Thank you. I'm glad you guys really liked it because I was like, I am a jerk, and we went way over.
Nice that you had the loophole though. Of it's 2 of us.
Yeah.
Yeah. We each followed the requirements. We just overlapped.
Right.
So I'm gonna ask you just a total soft. We're doing a lot of hard questions here, or at least procedural stuff. Let's do something. Let's do something soft. And Monique's idea of casting characters gave me the idea. So like, if you're gonna turn your story into a movie or something, if we had a TV show, we had like a fairy tales and Folklore and Fables Reimagined TV show with Rod Sterling somehow in it, and your episode was in there. Who would you cast in your story? Just a couple of characters. Of who would you cast in that story? Any movie actor.
Is that for all of us, or am I?
All of you. Okay, I'll go in order. I'll start with who wants to go first, because I know it's putting you on the spot a bit, and then we'll go from there. Who wants to try?
Well, for me, I mean, for mine, the human characters wouldn't need to be famous, but you would probably need a recognizable voice for Penn to play the robot. The robot would obviously be CG, but have someone with a recognizable voice. I don't know who that person would be, but yeah, it would definitely have to be someone, like with a lot of the robots through cinematic history, having that right voice, like I can't hear Optimus Prime as anybody except, Peter Cullen.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Anybody else does it, it doesn't sound right, that kind of thing. So it had to be someone that could bring that kind of, and he's a child, so it would not be that kind of a deep voice, but he would be a childlike voice, which I think just makes him committing all the murders more terrifying. So yeah.
Checks out.
Mm-hmm. Like if you had a Pee Wee Herman voice. No.
Yeah, someone with almost kind of a high pitched, child's
For Coco, I
voice,
kind of
yeah.
see Coco as Zendaya, young Zendaya.
Mhm.
Ooh,
Oh yeah.
nice.
That's
Zendaya
nice.
could play everybody. I mean, to be
That's-
clear,
I was gonna say, there's not much she couldn't do.
she's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Oh yeah, Ryan Reynolds. Greg says Ryan Reynolds from Pikachu should be the murder robot.
You know what? I could. It never would have occurred to me, but I could totally see that.
Yep. Anybody else, Monique? Did you? Because I know you said you put pictures. Did you have any other actors, in mind for anybody else in your story? Oh, I think you're locked up, or maybe not.
For Coco, I would say Zendaya, a young Zendaya.
Nice.
Yep. Did you have anybody else in mind for any other characters? Like the witch, the your big bad? Nope. Okay. StreamYard.
Dang it.
There's a
Yep. Go ahead.
the person that I would love to play the witch would be someone who's deceased.
Oh,
That's okay.
I guess
You can do it.
I could do it. I would love to see Elizabeth Taylor. And
Ooh.
I'm sorry for my technical difficulties.
That's
I'm
okay.
working with a Chromebook. I got this little cheap Chromebook, and now I know I was cheap.
oh
I should
no.
be using my regular computer. So lesson
Technology.
learned. Use your regular little lightweight Chromebook.
That's okay. We got your answer. Elizabeth Taylor would be great.
That's
And
awesome.
nowadays
Like,
with
dude,
AI,
this is new and it's really not performing. So I need a laptop.
I know it's frustrating when it happens. Well, with AI, it can happen.
Yeah.
I think that
Or
can
find an Elizabeth Taylor type.
Oh,
Yeah.
Find someone that's similar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about you, Marissa? Any casting ideas?
Yeah.
Ugh.
You know,
Oh, did you have some else?
No, go ahead, Monique. I know.
Get some.
no, I was just thinking, I'm old school. So I was even thinking something like an Erica Kane. That type of person that's just so vain. Can you hear me? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
That would be good. That's All My Children, right? Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that'd be amazing.
I think she'd be great for that. All right, awesome. And Marissa.
I can't remember. No, immediately I was like, I don't know a single actress or actor's name ever in the history of time. So the woman who played Harkness, Agatha in Agatha All Along, I would love her to play the Bog Witch.
Oh, yeah.
She has an amazing cackle. I
She
would
is.
love. Also, I just love her. I think for the twins, I mean, if we can go back in time, I think like a young Anne Hathaway would be really amazing. Like Monique, I think Zendaya could do anything. I think Zendaya would be amazing as the sisters. Yep. But it would have to be somebody who's like, or the chick from Orphan Black. She would be amazing. She can play multiple roles really well.
Tatiana Maslany.
I love
Thank you. My brain's like, no, nobody has real names. They're only characters. It's fine. And then the parents, I think that would be super fun. So the elf dad, the gentleman who played the Duke of Hastings in Bridgerton, I feel like he should just be an elf. I feel like he would be an amazing elf. And then Sandra Bullock for the mom, because I would cast her in everything at all times. But she also has one of my favorite lines in the story, which is all children are changelings. And I could see Sandra Bullock delivering that line really well.
Nice.
So
you got full cast now.
yeah, nobody's real name. Only Sandra Bullock apparently gets an actual name, and Zendaya. But you know what? They're amazing, so it's fine.
Yeah. And Greg says Colt or Kate.
She would.
That's Janeway, Captain Janeway, right? Am I right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Janeway would make an amazing Bog Witch.
Yeah. All right, Michael. What do you think? Peter Pan, Wendy. What?
I think I feel, and maybe it's just because it's a similar sort of performance, I feel like I'd be tempted to go a little bit meta with it. So I'm like, I can't think of a whole lot of actresses I could immediately go to for Wendy. I'd be curious, like, there was a 2003 Peter Pan I actually quite liked, and I might be like, what's that Wendy actress doing these days? But inversely, maybe there's an actress, Anna Popplewell. Anna Popwell. I looked her up. She was Susan in the Disney Narnia movies. So in terms of just kind of thinking of someone who's had that's kind of a similar sort of character or some similar experience, and she seems like she could, bring kind of the seriousness, but also the playfulness that my version of Wendy requires. So I think she wouldn't be a bad choice. As I said, I would not I cannot help but picture this high school friend of mine as Peter, but he's too old for the role now, so not him. I don't know. Probably my mind would probably go
you could
to
just get a
one of the
kid.
kids in the 2017 It.
Oh yeah. I don't know if they're still kids either.
Yeah, they're getting older too. But like, if we were to get an actor kind of trapped in time, I mean,
I think you should just take a little kid and you just CGI your friend's face on a kid.
All right, Jay, we're gonna be getting a nice composite of your face here, and we're gonna pop it over this.
And every time he sneezes,
you got a nephew.
And every time he sneezes, glitter.
Of course, yes. Of course, traditionally Peter Pan is played by a young woman, so maybe that's more so the direction I should think. I should be picking out a young woman, a young actress who could play my evil version of Peter, just to stand by old casting tradition and whatnot.
Yeah, you get the one actress from Stranger Things. I mean, she's a lot older now, but she can still she can play young still. So, so Jeremiah, who's your dream cast?
Oh, that's tough. I've been thinking about it. I have some names now after thinking about it for a few minutes. But when I wrote the story, there are some stories that I use, like I think of celebrities or I think of specific visuals for, and this one I didn't do that. This one has a lot of inspiration from like specific Poe things in Poe's life. So like names came from Poe characters or Poe stories. So they weren't real in that same way to me. But I think I would do for the character who's basically, his name's Perry, and he's telling the story in this letter. I would do Sam Neill, a young Sam Neill. And then for the waitress who's reading his story in my story, I probably want to do someone like new and trendy, maybe Sydney Sweeney. But if we were going a young Sam Neill, a young Nicole Kidman would be cool. But then that would be weird because they were in Dead Calm together, which was not a super well-known horror film, but actually a pretty good one with Billy Zane giving a really creepy performance. So for people who haven't seen Dead Calm, check it out.
Nice. I like it. How about you, Kat?
I keep on doing this, putting myself on mute. I hadn't thought about that before. So while other people were talking, I was like trying to use my imagination. I think for Dave Miller's Flip Flops of Destiny, I had to look up his name, but the actor Rob Delaney, I think would be perfect. He's Peter in Deadpool, if you remember that character. Mm-hmm. The guy who shows up for his group but doesn't have secret powers or whatever.
Every Deadpool has a Peter
mustache.
Yeah, that guy. So I think he'd be great for that part. And then for the changing tree, there's a specific actress that was in my mind, and I've been desperately Googling her, but I couldn't find her in time. So that'll just have to be a mystery. But there is a villain character who's like this sort of clueless, annoying bureaucrat type. And I think Rowan Atkinson, who plays Mr. Bean, would maybe be great.
Oh, yeah. I was thinking, for some reason, Changing Tree feels like something that would be like British sci-fi for some reason. I don't know
Right,
why.
exactly. In fact, the actress I was trying to, she, I don't know where she's from. Actually, she has one of these accents that's like very sophisticated, and so it could be just her classical training, or she could be, maybe she's British, but she plays American roles sometimes, so her accent sounds a little different. But
Now I'm really curious.
anyway, if
Maybe
I
I'll
ever
let me know
figure out
later.
who she is,
Yeah.
I'll tell you. But
I need
I
to
can
know.
visualize her. Yeah. Anyway, she's like sophisticated, old, and kind of sassy. Yeah, but I can't remember the name of the actress. So, oh well.
All right, so here's another technical question, and it's fine if you don't have an answer if this isn't relevant to you. But when writing your stories, and sorry, I'm just taking a look here. When writing your stories, did you have to cut anything? Maybe because there's so many words. Anything you had to cut? And Marissa, why don't we start off with you?
She's like, I cackled immediately. I would be a good bug witch. Yes, because we got really enthusiastic about the story and the characters. And we were brainstorming a bunch of other things we could do to make it all come together. And then we're like, no. So it's not that we cut them. We knew already we were going over. We stopped ourselves from adding yet more words. But I'll return to like hiding my face from this question.
Monique, did you have anything that you had to cut from your story?
I did. And, when I said Elizabeth Taylor, you probably thought, wow, that came out of left field. Why in the heck? But if you saw Elizabeth Taylor as a young woman, and then you saw her age, I mean, she was eerily beautiful as a young woman. But I mean, like all of us, because I is in and of itself. So I was going to try to put some more stuff in about her to explain kind of this thing that women go through when you're like so beautiful and then you're not so beautiful. And so I wanted to put something in there because I think any good villain but I was like, this is not a novel. Don't put that in there. Because I didn't want her to be two-dimensional, but sometimes fairy tale and the short stories, they have to be two-dimensional. But if I was ever to bring this into a full novel, you would see that the pains of becoming older and not being able to maintain your youth, because the Kardashians could be really good to be put in that role because they have all the tools to stay beautiful. But imagine if those tools were taken away, what would you do? So it's kind of like in that vein where you see this person that is, just morphs. And if you saw her in Virginia Woolf, man, she gets mean. I mean, you see her, she is, just seeing actors on the screen and see how the depth of them helps you to put them in as other characters. So yeah, I wanted to put in some stuff about her, but I had to take it out.
Cool. And Bobby, you got anything you had to cut?
Not really. When I was doing this, I remember it was a deadline heavy time when this one was due as well. So it was like, you don't have time to cut anything, plan better. And I do this a lot. So I kind of gotten it to where with a short story, I kind of know, just because I do it so much. But no, I didn't really have to cut anything. There was actually a couple of parts where I was like, I'd get toward the end, I was like, oh, actually, that needs a little more, because I didn't feel like I explained something, and I had to go back and add a little bit. So, but I am not unaccustomed to soaring right past a word count limit and having to come back. So, but in this particular instance, I didn't have to.
Cool. And Kat, did you have to cut anything in your stories?
I didn't cut for length, but I did change, like at the last minute, I changed one scene in the Changing Tree that was a little bit spicy, and I decided to edit it because I remembered my parents were going to read this story.
Oh,
I chickened out. So there is another version out there.
ooh.
Yeah, it was really mild, but
Enchanted Tales after dark or whatever.
Right, exactly. If you do a special extra Kickstarter one, they can read that one.
Jeremiah, how about you?
I don't think there's anything major I cut. I definitely did like some minor nip and tucking, for to go back to the celebrity culture thing. I definitely tightened it up a little bit and probably removed a couple of words here and there. I think when I first started, I think I wrote like my initial draft and then I didn't like where it was going and then like cut most of that back to like one little sequence and then started again basically. So I probably cut, I don't know, maybe like a paragraph total, 2 paragraphs total, but nothing major. This story was like one where honestly I just crammed probably way too much in, honestly, because this was an idea that I had going back to 2019 for like a novella or a novel. It was this huge idea and I could never figure out the right way to tell it in that novella length. So I ended up shortening it, but as a result, I feel like, I don't know, I've heard good feedback from it, so hopefully it doesn't feel crammed. Maybe it feels crammed in a good way, but so anyway, there's a lot in there and I didn't cut that much.
How about you, Michael? Did you have to cut anything?
I didn't really have to cut anything major. I'll say slightly different direction. There was a change that happened over the course of the story. In the earliest version of the story, the darling father was still around. So Wendy and her father had kind of this contentious relationship going on that that he's putting this pressure on her to go off and get married and like leave childish things behind and all that business. And at one point I realized, because at one point I kind of started toying with the idea of putting Wendy's brothers back into the plot and give them something to do. I was like, it'd be too crammed if they were all there. So at some point I realized, I'll just, John the middle sibling, he was already the bookish one. He was already the most likely to eventually turn into their dad, basically, who, is over concerned with decorum and money and all that. So I basically only had to change a couple of the lines to better accommodate coming out of John's mouth as opposed to their father's. And that fit together much more organically, I thought. Plus, it let me write her youngest brother, Michael, who was just a big ball of sunshine and fun, who then gets in a pretty horrific accident towards the end. So, that was a good change.
Cool. All right, so let's so here Greg has got a question. We'll go ahead. So do you think about theme first, plot first, or character first whenever it comes to your stories? Do any of you lean a certain way?
Usually it's character first. I always start with character.
Okay.
Same.
How about anybody? Same? Yeah. And anybody else, Scott?
I think I go plot first a lot of the times, but sometimes I can't make the plot go until I have found the right characters. So I kind of agree with Bobby in that way. But I usually have a really cool plot outline before anything else, like a very loose, some idea, some cool plot idea. And then I need that character to actually make the thing go.
Yeah. Yeah, we had the concept first for this story. Because we had to, right? Like we had to propose the concept first. But then we couldn't start writing until we got the characters. Although every now and then there'll be like a vibe. I will have a vibe for the story first, which is super unhelpful. But it won't leave me alone until I figure out what the character is that's in this vibe. And then it will all fall into place. So
It's like a goth vibe, a jazz
something. Yeah, it's like, it's the end of the world again. All right. Like whatever the vibe, the feel of the story is. Sometimes that will come first. But usually it comes with the character's voice, because it's usually the character's voice that's like this again, or whatever the the vibe is. So
Yeah. How about Monique, Kat? Do you have you lean towards one or the other?
I'll go first.
Usually
I
I
think.
lean towards
Oh,
character, but with this, oh, you go first.
oh no, you started. You started. I'll wait.
Oh no, usually I'd start with character, but with this, Mars was my inspiration. Mars was really the centerpiece. So that theme of Mars was for me, and I wanted to put my folks on Mars. So I kind of retrofitted Mars into what we were doing.
Cool. How about you, Kat?
I think it's usually a little closer to plot, but in a really vague, fuzzy sort of way. You know, like often it'll be kind of more like a concept, maybe. Like I for years I've been playing with off and on, like with writing a foodie book, but in space, and like trying to imagine like how utterly bizarre that could get. And I don't mean like spaceships. I mean like other planets and like different, like just, and people trying to figure out if they can eat something or not, and they don't know, like just how crazy you could get with cuisine if you just threw out all the earth rules. In my head, I think of it as beyond cheese and bread, which is like what you or in processed food or whatever you always have in these books, right? And just see how weird I could get with it. So like a lot of times with stories, it'll be like something like, oh, I want to play with that idea, and then I come up with characters and a plot.
Nice.
So I don't know. That's sometimes the idea never goes anywhere because of where I start, with it. But
how come you didn't submit a recipe? I mean,
I should have. You're right.
So Greg asks, "Whoops! Oh, wait! Oh, somebody else just popped up." All right. Thank you for watching, and Greg said, like, does it coincide with world building first, or improving situations first?
Yeah, I guess I love the world building first. I guess that's what it is. Yeah.
All right, cool. So I got one more craft question for you, and then we'll wrap things up probably, unless we have some more questions. Oh, Greg said improv. Oh, not improving situations, improv situations. That makes more sense. It's like social commentary. How are we improving things? Okay. So if somebody's watching and they want to be a writer, maybe they're in early stages of being a writer, what piece of advice would you give them on trying to put a new twist on a classic tale? What would you pass along to the new authors coming along? We'll start with Bobby.
The two pieces of advice I usually give to new readers is, first is, I'll have fun with it. Mm-hmm. Write what you enjoy what you're writing, try to get in there and have a good time doing it. Because if you're miserable, this is not you don't want to follow and have a career where you're miserable all the time. It's usually not the best way to go about it. And then I always tell people, if you want writing to be your career, you have to decide what you want out of your writing. Do you want it to be your career? Do you want to do it as a hobby? Is it just something you do on the side? Those things matter, and you can kind of decide how you're going to approach writing based on where you want it to go. When I decided, one of the eye-opening moments for me was someone, and I don't remember who mentioned this to me. It's like, if I wanted writing to be my career, I had to treat it like a job. And that became an eye-opener for me. So, like, I go to the office every day like I would if I was working a corporate job. Mm-hmm. And that has helped me. So you can kind of make your plans based on where you want to do it. But first and foremost, write what you enjoy. Don't try to write what you don't enjoy, because if you don't like writing vampires and you write a vampire thing and it becomes popular, then you're stuck writing vampires for the rest of your life. Mm-hmm. So if you don't like that, don't chase that unless it's something you enjoy.
Yeah, I think it's good advice. Sometimes people want to chase trends, you
Yeah.
know. So,
It rarely does that ever work, you know,
Yep.
because trends change so fast. Sometimes it changes before you finish writing the thing you were trying to write, and yeah, it's tough.
Mhm. How about you, Monique? Any tip you would share?
I think for me, I think I'm going to turn my camera off. Learn your craft and be confident in yourself. Your voice, you have your voice is your voice, and embrace your voice because it's what makes you unique. You know, but you can still pay homage to the writers that you love. But you know, have confidence in yourself because we as writers, I think I'm not confident at all. And I wish that I had been more confident earlier. And so put your stuff out there. Don't put it in a bin under your bed. People can teach you, and don't let people crush you because they're just trying to help you. And you can still have your voice and receive input from people, but be confident in the story you have to tell.
That's good advice. How about you, Marissa?
Yeah, I yes to everything Monique and Bobby said. Yes. And I would say, like, specifically for if you're trying to write like a twist on a fairy story or a folk tale or fable, something that's already kind of in the consciousness, or you love vampires but you want a twist, I would, sort of to Monique's point, I would think about, like, what is it, well, to both Monique and Bobby's points, what is it you bring to the table? Do you have like a weird twisted brain, and therefore you're going to write kind of a creepy, weird twisted spin? Are you like, brain, no shade, like, for real? Like, are you snarky and sassy, and that's the sort of twist you're going to bring to it? Are you, what are you, like, think about what you bring to the table and what you want to bring to the table. I got my start in fan fiction, so it's a lot of, like, taking things you love and continuing to write, and I did that for years and years and years and years and years, and that is a great way to practice. So it is great to take something that exists, like folktales, fables, fairy tales, and start playing with what you want your voice to be, or what you think you're good at, or what your strengths are. Put that weird twisted brain to work. Do the fun, say the weird thing, do the fun stuff. So find what works for you and do that over and over again.
And she's absolutely right too, because we are all so different and unique in how we do things. So, like, if every one of us wrote the exact same plot into a story, you would have, 7 different stories.
Yeah.
Because we each bring something unique to how we either 100%. Approach character or the story or whatever. So you're bringing something that's uniquely you.
And to Greg's point, I totally am. I have a weird, twisted little brain. So join me, folks. Come also be weird and twisted.
He's I don't know if you remember Greg. He's seen you in other stuff, so he's not just making.
Yeah, no, it's not just from this story. He's like, no, I've seen that brain in action. Okay. Yeah, he's right.
And just to reinforce what Bobby said, Greg says, chasing trends only works on YouTube and TikTok, but you hate your job. So, all right, let's go. Kat, what tip would you provide?
Okay, well, I mean, everything everyone said so far is like amazing. So I guess something that hasn't been covered too much yet is, I would say, make friends along the way. Like nice people, kind people who can, support you. You can support them. You can learn together. And, it helps with the shyness, but it also just helps make the journey more fun. And if somebody is cruel about your work or offensive, you can always turn them into a character in one of your books and make something terrible happen to them. And they'll never know.
It's also having writer friends is good, because who else understands a writer's problems better?
Absolutely.
If I tell my brother or my parents, hey, I had this writing problem, they look at me like I've grown a second head.
Yeah.
But you can talk to other writer friends about it, and they understand.
Yeah, totally.
They can talk you off that ledge.
Yeah,
Very true.
absolutely.
All right, and Jeremiah.
To kind of piggybacking off of that last comment, a good way to get writer friends is to go to Seton Hill University. Let's see if I can point to my degree right there. A lot of us are from Seton Hill, and that is a good way to learn about how to write whatever story you want to write.
There you
So
go.
that would be
Nice.
my thought. Go there.
That's
Learn.
It's the Seton family crest on my hat there. Very blurry,
Wonderful.
but it's there.
Yeah.
Nice. I almost wore my hoodie when I graduated. I never I never make expensive, extravagant purchases. Well, am I just the this one? I guess that's so. I'm not really selling what I'm saying, but I usually don't invest a lot in clothes because I'm a typical dude who has like one set of clothes that I like to wear. But I spent like $60 on a Seton Hill hoodie, and I should have worn it tonight. I thought about it, but I went with red because Red Death. So
There you go.
Nice. Yeah, a lot of authors, especially when we first started, are from Seton Hill, so that's where I went to also. But not Marissa, not Bobby. We've met new people along the way, which is great.
Yeah, we met through convention. We met at a convention for in person.
Yeah, we did.
So,
We met at a
yeah.
convention. So
Jeremiah, you should do a book event in like Baltimore at the last bar that he got drunk at before he died or something.
I've visited. It's actually a fortuitous trip that I took. Me and my wife went down to Baltimore and visited his grave, which I drew inspiration from when I wrote the story because I knew what his grave looked like. Actually, his two graves, because he was buried in his original grave and then moved to another one with his family.
Okay.
And I visited the house he lived in Baltimore, and then we walked around Inner Harbor. And the reason, besides that trip was really cool, but the reason that trip sticks in my head is my wife started to not feel so good that day, and we were both like, what's wrong? What's going on with you today? Like, we have no idea. Well, we had been trying to conceive for a while, and so it was like, I think a week or two later we got the news, and we're like, oh, Dodoy, that's why you were sick. Like, but it was it was a really cool trip, and I wish I could get.
I was
to Baltimore
expecting
more
another near-death experience story.
Yeah.
There.
Right.
Sorry.
No. Well, it's either near death or life. That's
life,
all we
yeah.
There
know.
we are. Yeah.
Going together. Yeah.
Cycle. Yeah.
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 That's very cool.
Yeah.
So if your child starts writing Edgar Allan
Spooky
Poe, it's
stories, yeah.
reincarnated spirit of Rebel.
That's when Jeremiah's going to put the child to work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. some stuff.
Her middle name's from a Lord of the Rings character, so maybe she'll do fantasy.
There you go. Cool. And Michael, you have a tip you like to share?
So specific to writing remixes on old fantasy, folklore, fairy tales, that business, I think one of the most useful things you can do is sit down and ask yourself, what is the logical extreme of this story? And you don't necessarily have to go there, but if you ask yourself, all right, well, what's as close to there as I can possibly get? Because Girl Who Grew Up is, when you get down to it, a lot of it is just the idea of, what if you made friends with this perpetually immature brat with magical powers, and he never stopped, and like, he kept wanting you to mother him forever. And I'm like, that's awful. And
Yeah.
I would pity, I would feel real bad for that character, and I would want her to get out of that situation. And it became writing the story of that character getting out of that situation. So ask yourself, what's the most extreme version of this? What's the long-term repercussions? Any of that business. And again, you don't have to go to the very end of that, but ask yourself how close you can get.
That's really fun. That's a really fun way to think about it.
It is a good way. All right. We've been
Well,
chatting for a while.
What about you, Mark?
Yeah, Mark.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I'm on the spot. Tips. I don't know. So I would say, gosh, oh my gosh, so much pressure.
Well, I guess coming from you from the publishing side of it, what are tips that you would give to writers who are submitting to you?
Oh, okay.
Or if you
Watch
want to
watch
follow
word
your
count.
path.
I'm teasing. No, I think when you're submitting something, I think it's important. Well, follow instructions, because you don't follow instructions. I'm not talking about word count. I'm talking about just general. if they ask you to do certain things, to pitch a story or whatever, and you're just like, I don't need to pitch my story, or you pitch a story and then you just like turn in something completely different or something, that kind of stuff. You don't want to like have to wrestle with somebody on stuff. And I think so. Just make it easy and go along with it and stuff. And I think another thing would be what someone said is make sure to bring what's original to your story, that makes your story original with your voice. And so if you like to do lots of dialogue, nail that dialogue and hit it strong. Just really try. I think also, like, if you're looking at anthologies or publishers, look at what they've made before and see if that's right for you. If you can write something like that, but then don't carbon copy it. Take something that you think they would like, that's their taste, right, and that particular art, and then make sure you put your unique flair into it so you stand out. Otherwise, everything else is up to luck, right? So I think just about and your craft and working on it. So I think it's good to have critique partners. If you don't have, like, we had critique partner programs, it was optional for you guys. But if you don't have that for whatever you're doing, get a critique partner, make some friends, other writer friends, and critique each other. So what you're turning in is really strong, because there could be stuff. It's not even like, oh, this is terrible or something. It's more like, where you confused somewhere in the story or something. And that's something you got to get feedback on to find out about. Because to you, it makes complete sense because you created it. Yeah. You need to know, remember, art is communication. So if I'm communicating something to you and you go, what was that about? You need to know that so you can tweak it to make it clear for the next person. So those are some stuff, I guess. And
That's awesome.
Yeah. All right. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I should say, Greg says Marisa breaks all the rules. Word count rules. Yes. I'm not great at those. I try really hard, but I make sure to hit the important ones. So style guides, deadlines. If a call specifically says, nothing graphic or don't use a lot of swear words. The swear words is hard for me, but I will do it. Like I make sure to follow the rules so that one that I might be a little over on is looked at with a little more forgiveness potentially.
I mean, of all the rules for me, this one's a little different because it's invitation. So I already know you a little bit, right? So I'm going to be pretty forgiving on word count in the beginning. I want to see if the story is good and we go from there, because we've had stories go over before. And sometimes they get cut down a lot. Sometimes they don't, they're awesome. So, so now if it was like a full on open call, I would just go in for anybody can submit whatever. I would just have to look at that story. I might Google their name and see if there's someone that's really cool or something that I don't know about. Otherwise, I'm like, nope, bye, because it's too big for me to go through. So,
you don't ever want to be the writer that goes, I know they asked for this, and my story is not that, but they'll take it anyway.
Yeah. Never.
You don't want to be that writer, because they just see your name and go, oh.
Right, Bobby? Right? Like, you want people to see your name and be like, oh, heck yeah, I want to read this story. Yeah. Like, I've heard she's easy to work with. I've heard he's really fun. Like, yes, that is what you want. So, like, I will, like, oh no, I'm sorry, but like, I do my very best so that anytime Marks is writing an anthology, he's like, hey, like, that's what I want, right? Yeah. The goal is I want to be a perennial invite. Like, I want you to want my story there. So I will do my best to not be a jackass.
Because you don't want them to just see your name and go,
ugh,
because you're already at a disadvantage there. So and there's and it's not just at the beginning process. I mean, how do you respond to edits?
Yeah.
The editor is not your enemy, but I know some people that will argue every single suggestion, and so you have to those are things. Experience teaches a lot of that as you do it often enough, but yeah, it's like it's part of the process. And
that's why I think it helps to have critique partners who are honest critique partners, because then you get used to the feedback and you realize it's not combat or something. They're just giving advice, and you learn whenever, like, that's cool, but you're wrong for some reason. But then that's a good idea, and I should absorb that.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you just want to put out the best book you can.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah. And
And
editors are key. Sorry.
And one good tip I was told by Timmons, from who was one of our mentors, some of your mentors probably from Seton Hill. When he came into short stories, he just told me, you know what, whatever the editor says, do it, because later on you can republish it and do whatever you want with it. So
He's a very practical person.
he's very practical. So
Right.
So I think that's always a good piece of advice if you're really upset about something, and because you can always republish it later. If it's short stories, you can always republish them later at some point and do whatever you want with it. Either expand it out or add in all the F-bombs you want, whatever it is you want to do.
Everywhere.
I had a mentor, a writer who kind of took me under his wing early on, and he told me when it comes to edits that he says you need to decide which hill you want to die on when it comes to edits. Because if you argue every little thing, they're probably not going to invite you back because are you worth that much hassle?
Right.
But yeah, it's like decide, if there's 10 suggestions, if one of them is like, I really don't want to change that, that's the one you go back and say, hey, can we leave that part? Yeah. And just the others, no problem. Let's go, So yeah, it's like you don't want to be difficult. You want to be invited back. You want to work with people again and again, and that's part of how you do it.
Yeah. A way to lead up to that with critique partners, I have found, is to say specifically what you're looking for. So with an editor is going to do what they need to do. If you're working with a critique partner, though, to say like, hey, I feel really good about my dialogue. Unless it just doesn't make sense to you because you're not in my head, just go ahead and leave that. But what I really need you to look at is my pacing. Or can you please do this? And that can really help you ease your way into taking feedback because you're specifically looking at a certain part that you need help with. And that can really help. But I cannot co-sign Bobby's point enough. I think every single time I've gotten edits, there's been one hill that I'm like, no, I'm going to dive right here. We're all going, all of us. But everything else, I'm like, oh, that's a good point. The other thing is walk away from your edits, read them, have your feelings, and then come back and handle them like a professional. You got this.
Yeah. I feel like most good editors, if you're polite about it and you explain why it's important, most of the time they will understand, but okay, I get it now,
Yeah.
So if there's some kind of like word count limit or there's something else that they need to, I'm not trying to pick on you.
It's fine. Okay.
It comes up a lot with editing and stuff, but or some technical reason why it's got to be something different, then they'll work with, if they're a good editor, they'll work with you on how to fix it without making it happy for everybody.
Yeah.
And Greg says, like, on the flip side of project editor wants to change everything, take away yourself from your story, just find another project. So I would say if you got an editor that's usually an editor who wants to be a writer, maybe he's an active writer and they're trying to write through you in a way.
Yeah.
So you want to be careful.
Yeah.
I haven't run into that much myself.
Yeah.
But
No.
But like every writer is kind of uniqueness. Every editor has a uniqueness too, and not all editors edit the same way. So it depends on who you get, and because I've had ones I thought were fantastic, and I've worked with some that I didn't. So there's a lot of give and take, and you just
It's like
again, it's
wild
one of those
people.
things. Yeah, it's just but yeah,
feel like
talking it out helps.
Yeah. I feel like what Greg's saying comes up, from what I understand, talking to people more often when you're writing for film or television. You get those producer notes and people who want to tweak stuff a lot. I don't feel like in books it happens as much that I've heard. So but maybe you've heard different.
Not as much. I have had examples where I've pitched books to publishers, or they've asked for something, and I give them either what they asked for. I pitch something. They come back and they want to say, well, we don't want this type of story. We really want this. And I was like, well, you should have said that up front. But if it's a change you're just not comfortable making, that's a good point to say, but you have to decide, do you want the book to go, are the changes they're asking for like so horrific that you just can't see yourself doing it?
To like say, I want glitter vampires. Can you have that in there?
Yeah.
Yep. Hopefully I've never asked anything too terrible.
Also,
Oh, go ahead, Michael. Sorry.
Just to toss out there too, like if you can explain it to your editor and to make them understand what you were going for, make sure there isn't a way that you can explain it in the text to better get across what you're going for. Because you can justify it in your back and forth to the person, but it'd be much better if you don't have to justify it to your future readers. Your intent is just clearer, and what you're going for is better portrayed.
Yeah, that's an excellent edit note. Is this doesn't make? I'm confused. If your editor is confused by something you've written, you're absolutely right, Michael. The reader is probably going to be confused as well. Because I know personally, I get tunnel vision sometimes, and it makes sense to me because I know what I'm thinking. But then I look at it and realize, oh, I left words out. And so that's where a good editor will really catch those things and will let you know when something isn't quite. And beta readers are also good for that, and editors and other writers, and so.
Yeah, awesome. I think
Sorry,
that was
I felt like that one.
Yeah, we had lots of great advice packed in there. All right.
I'm just glad Roby didn't throw me into the bus because I've edited him, and I thought he was going to be like, "Well, I like editing when it's not from Jeremiah," but he didn't. He was nice.
Well, that's good. He said, "No, I was thinking about it."
Your edits are always perfect. Your edits are always perfectly justified and succinct.
Thank you. Oh, that's nice. I'll take that.
He's perfectly fine. I would never dare.
Oh, that's very nice. I wasn't fishing for a compliment, but I will take it.
All right. Well, we've been going almost 2 hours, so I think it's time to start wrapping stuff up here.
Cutting us off.
Yeah, I'm tired. I gotta eat the food. So.
Oh, yeah, fair.
All righty. Ooh, nice.
The clock has struck midnight.
Yes. But thanks so much to all of you authors, of course, for the great stories you wrote, and for being here and chatting with us, and for whoever was listening live, plus whoever will probably, many people watch it after the fact. So I hope everybody enjoyed it and picked up a few tips. This here fourth wraps up the Kickstarter and beginneth our wide release sooneth.
Yay.
So thanks again for all of you for trusting me with your stories. I hope you enjoyed the experience. I hope all of you enjoyed the experience of writing on this. I hope all the backers enjoyed the experience of the Kickstarter. And I'm reading the comments. My old English needs an editor. And before we go, let's tell everybody where they can find you online and any other projects you have coming out you want to promote real quick too. We'll just go right down to this direction with Michael and go down the line. You have anything you want to promote or anywhere to go online to find you?
Coming up here in March, I'm going to be featured in the Perfect Anthology with a comedic story involving a young man taking his girlfriend to prom, and she's a descendant of Scylla, the Greek monstrosity with like wolves growing out of her belly and tentacles and all that good stuff. So it's an absurdist little piece, but I had a lot of fun doing it. You can find me on newpulptales.com, which is a website run by Jeremiah over there. I'm trying to point. Yeah, there we go. You got it. With new episodes of my comedy series, Sabine of the Ten Rings. I have a website. Don't go looking for it. It desperately needs updated.
That sounds like a dare. Ever go find this website. All right, awesome.
Reverse psychology at work.
All right, Jeremiah, how about you?
Well, sadly, I have nothing on the horizon for short stories coming out. I have a novella that I'm waiting to hear back on. That's with someone. I might just go ahead and put together a short story collection. I have a cover. I definitely have enough stories, but it's just a matter of how I want to publish it. But if you're ever interested in my work, you can find my website, which is actually very good, and I'm very proud of right now. It's just jeremiahdylancook.com. So, Roby, if you ever need help, I'd be happy to help. So That would be
You
more
sold
fun.
it too well. I don't want to check it out now. I want to just teasing.
I better take it up on that.
Awesome. And Kat, how about you?
The best way to find me is I keep kind of a running list of whatever is recently published or has been published on Linktree. So you can just go to Linktree/Catherine Dow and find me there, and that's the best way. I do plan on starting a newsletter soon.
Cool.
So soon that will be on Linktree as well, how to sign up for that. But that's the best little collection of things I've done, because I try to be organized, but sometimes it doesn't come naturally.
Well, newsletters are great. So
Yes.
all right, Bobby, how about you?
BobbyNash.com is where you can find links to everything. I'm on all the social medias, and there's links there. I also have a newsletter. I have a store on the website where you can buy autographed books that way. There's always stuff in the pipeline. I don't know dates yet because publishers haven't given me dates on some of them yet, but there is speaking of pulp stuff, there's a pulp novel called Paladins, which teams up a lot of old pulp characters in an adventure I'm doing for Moonstone. And I've got a Green Hornet coming out later this year. A couple of crime novels. So yeah, lots going on.
And Monique? Where can people find you online, Monique? All right.
MoniqueWaddell.com. And also my novel Blood Shift the Awakening is on all of the major outlets through Draft to Digital.
Nice. Is that
Great title?
Was that your thesis that I read once, or is that a different story?
Yes, it was.
No.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
Let's get that.
It's the
Okay.
same one. So the one and the same. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. I'll have to check it out.
Awesome.
All right. And Marissa, how about you?
MariceWolf.net, MariceWolf.com. I go both ways. You can sign up. Oh, there's a cat. That's way more fun. You can sign up for my newsletter. There are 4 free short stories that you will get if you sign up for my newsletter. I'm fully distracted by cattail, not a euphemism. For other works, if you like space opera, Blood of Her Father just came out this January. It is space opera, evil stepmother, young queen, but nobody is actually only one thing. So shenanigans ensue. And later this year, September, the first week of September, my debut fantasy novel comes out, and that is A Plague of Magic. So
Sweet.
does what it says on the tin. There'll be a plague of magic.
Nice.
Yeah.
And people can find me at markspile.com for in general about me. You also, of course, can check out the books. This is the link to the first one, Enchanted Tales, books2read.com, Enchanted Tales. You can find also more about them at cabbitcrossing.com. There's pre-order links there and any of the other books we've done so far. And there'll be news there for any future projects. And there should be a newsletter there. I kind of hide a little bit, but it's on the books page. I need to make it a little bit more full frontal. And so anyway, and appreciate everybody for watching. Thanks for all of you authors for spending a couple of hours here chatting. I appreciate it. And thanks again for all your stories. I hope you all enjoyed it. Hope everybody enjoyed watching this. And until next time.
All right.
Thank you so much.
It was a delight. Thank you all.
Seriously.